Hello and welcome back to Bourbon Barrel Talk. I'm your host, Scott, and we're back in the Brock Bourbon Bar, and we're talking wood.
Hardwood.
Possibly a softwood.
Could be. Could be morning wood. Could be all kinds of wood. Anyway, we
got pills for that.
They do.
They're blue.
Oh, my God. I cannot tell you the number of commercials I see on Facebook and Instagram. And
do you have your age profile in there?
Well, let's say that it's like that Google ad where if you've been doing any searching, it's going to show up as your stuff on Facebook.
I can tell you that right now, 100%.
Yeah,
but Facebook doesn't say that.
But what
But
I'm
you just
telling you
talked
is,
about it. Therefore, it's going to pop up.
So I guarantee it. But like, I swear to you, not like even some of my buddies, and this is something I swear to you, like, my wife was telling me a story. This kid got in trouble for selling boner pills at New Albany High School.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about that.
And I'm like, what does an 18-year-old boy need with boner pills? Like, it just doesn't make any sense there.
I would think it'd be the opposite of going how not to pitch a tent during class.
Well, the funny thing is, and that's when I heard about like all the other things. So then I actually did look it up, because I guess there's a difference between like sildenafil, tadalafil, and then whatever the other one is. One's supposed to make you last longer. One's supposed to help you pop the tent, and then one is supposed to be for something else. I don't remember what it was, but evidently there are 3 different varieties that they can kind of mix into one magic pill, or then if you only have problems with one or not the other, you can evidently take the other one. But anyway.
What's this podcast about wood?
What's the name of the magic
The digression
pill?
happens within 30 seconds.
Absolutely. What's that legend?
I said, what's the name of the magic pill?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, you said you researched it.
No, I mean, they said there was one that combined all 3. I don't remember. But
Okay.
I can't remember. Like I said, it was one of those things that I was reading because I was like, why would it? And then that's when my wife said, she goes, I think they said it like helps them like last longer. And I'm like, well, so that's weird, but okay. Like, even when you're 18, right, you just pop a load and go right back to it. Like, I mean, there's no, I don't know. That's crazy.
All night long.
And for those
You
who
are
are
not
actually
lying.
wanting to listen to bourbon podcast, I don't know when that's
All
going to
right.
happen.
Anyway, so we are drinking bourbon, and we somebody sent some samples to one of y'all. I don't remember who it was, but there's some Four Roses samples here. They are older, which is unusual, but they are OESK and OESV. So we're going to try these. We're going to sip on them, give our honest assessment on them. But we're mainly going to talk about wood and the sustainability of wood. And there are people starting to use chips or putting staves in barrels and other things to try to flavor barrels or age bourbon, things like that. And I'm just trying to get everybody's kind of general feeling behind it. As a little bit of a hippie, kind of like the idea of, saving the trees, not cutting them down every, whatever. Then there's somebody that said, like, when I talked to Zach Cooperage, he's like, well, we're not harvesting wood enough. Like, so therefore the forest can't fully grow and all these other things. I don't know what's tomfoolery. I don't know what's bullshit. I don't, So anyway, we're going to talk about wood, barrels, and what's the truth, what's not the truth, what's our opinions, and kind of go from there.
Sounds good.
I mean, do we want to start out with a more hot topic of people aging with chips instead of actually putting them in a true barrel and just using chips in another container?
So I've heard about people using stainless steel and dropping like tons and tons of like smoked or charred or toasted chips and things like that. Now, I will say I've used chips for multiple different things. I've had French oak chips. I've had Ambriana chips. I've had Mizunara chips. I've had all kinds of chips, and
that's to finish, not to age.
Yeah, I don't disagree. What I'm saying is,
because I love the Ambriana we did.
I can definitely say that it adds complexity and that there's definitely a different flavor profile. Now, the question is if you did that wholeheartedly for 5 or 6 years, what would it be like? That's the question.
I don't know if it would, because as much chips as you're going to have in there to age something, unless you're using a bigger stainless steel cask or barrel or whatever have you, your yield's going to be lower to me, and I don't think it's going to go in and out of that wood as much, or maybe it's going to soak up into that wood quicker and use up everything it's got.
So one of the things that I've seen more recently as what they do is they are taking about 1.5 inch cubic pieces of wood. They are stringing them together to where it's almost like about a yard and a half worth.
So they're creating a stave, basically?
Well, no, what they're doing is they're creating, it's still going to be oak, and it's going to be usually about a char 2, char 3, or char 4. You can actually get them by those based on those chars. And what you're doing whenever you put them in there, especially for long periods of time, and especially during the heat cycling, all you're doing is you're giving your distillate more area of wood to either soak into or extract from. And that's where I think, because if you're taking your normal barrel, there's only so much surface area to where that distillate can go in and out of. But if you're giving it additional wood area to be able to soak into and out of, that's where I think that's where the question comes into that possibly hyper-aging, or advancing the perceived age of the wood, because there's more for it to soak into and out of.
Or it's going to be way over.
So are you
way
for it
quicker.
or against it?
I'm in the middle right now, because the thing is that I don't think I've really had one, and I'm working to try to see if I can get a hold of a bottle of one that has
Gotcha.
done that, so that I can actually have an opinion.
Right.
Is it if you're a traditionalist?
That's my problem. That's
Right.
the only problem that I have with it, honestly, is the traditionalist in me. Bourbon is made one thing, and there's also a law requirement, right? It has to go into new charred oak,
Yeah.
new charred white oak, right? Like that's the law. That's what the U.S. government said.
Right.
Do they rewrite the laws in order for a more sustainable product?
Because the thing is that as soon as you put in different staves, into that wood or into the barrel, it becomes technically that finished whiskey. I mean, people still say it's bourbon, bourbon finished in staves.
It becomes Maker's 46 because they use 13 or 14 different staves in one of their barrels or something to that effect.
right.
Which they're the only ones I can think of off the top of my head that use staves.
Religiously.
Yeah.
There's a distillery or a company by the name of Broken Barrel, and they
rebuild.
They break up barrels and then put them in to
Other barrels to finish.
other barrels.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
you're getting the wood from the barrel plus the wood from the pieces they've broken up.
Yep.
But then there's also
Was it the Spire
Jefferson-
people?
pardon?
The Spire people.
Well,
yes.
there's the Spire, but there's also
The Oak and Eden.
Oak and Eden.
Yeah.
Yep.
but there's also Jefferson Reserve does their twin oak, and the second barrel has been grooved on the inside
Ooh. Now, see, that's a totally different monster. I really like the idea of doing more groove staves.
to open up
More surface area.
more surface area. And I helped pick a barrel, 5 years ago probably now.
Yeah. That would
Just-
have been about that long.
Just incredible.
I was about to say, the ones that I've had of those have been fairly damn amazing.
There's
There's a lot more surface area. So I don't know if y'all have seen them. They literally
Yep.
take the inside of the barrel and put long cuts. And then they're about a quarter of an inch deep. And then they char deep into those nooks and
Oh, I'm
crannies.
perfectly fine with that.
And that's a totally different monster.
Yeah.
But I think the same concept is that they're just trying to get more surface area for the oak. Because, I mean, the question
Yeah.
is that if those chips are charred new white oak that are going into the already new oak, that's where I think they can get around the rules.
That would go to the TTB agent or the ATF agent, whoever inspects that stuff, because at that point, you're dancing the line. To me.
Absolutely. But, I mean, who doesn't dance a line? How many people go 7 miles over the speed limit hoping the cop won't pull them over?
I love towing the
Hey,
line.
don't speak of that
Sometimes
right
I
now.
love just jumping over
I may have
the
got
line.
pulled over recently.
Oh, no.
Warning, luckily.
By the way, the nose on this first one is like a floral bomb with some caramel and some light fruit. But man, oh
Oh,
man,
it's wonderful.
The
I love
flavor
it.
palette on this thing, oof, Mama Lucia, it's delicious.
So it is a 18-year, 108 proof.
18-year, 108 proof. Whew.
Ooh.
It's got
It's got the oak for it too, buddy.
Yep.
and it's got legs for days.
It does. It's pretty tasty. All right.
So let me throw out another thing, or are we still going to stay on this the staves?
No, I mean we can move all around. Like I said, we're talking chips, we're talking staves. My question is, and I'm adjacent to where you guys are at, right? So if you do chips or those type of things, are you going to get the same richness of color? Because in those hot summers and those cold winters, and what makes the magic happen, and when you really look at and I'm even gonna push it a step further. Look at Old Forester, the heat cycle, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Think about how much richer a lot of their bourbons are in color just because of that.
Oh,
By
absolutely.
adding, let's just
True two
hypothetically speaking, if you took a stainless steel container, you put staves that you charred, like you said, even if you strung them together different ways, whatever, and threw a metric fuck ton into a 500-gallon vat of this stuff, and you aged it. You put it in a warehouse. You move it to the hottest part of the warehouse in the summer and the coldest part of the warehouse in the winter. You just move these things around. Are you going to get the same richness of color? You might not get the same complexity of flavor, but will you get the same richness of color?
I'd be more inclined to think that you would get the color, but not the flavor.
Yeah, I'm with the legend on
I would,
that.
and God knows, I'd much rather have the flavor than.
All right, I'm going to throw
color.
something out there just because of recent events of us having conversations with another at a local distillery. Is this metal container sealed?
Well, yeah, I would
It
assume
have to
so.
be because
Okay. Then,
every barrel is sealed and
well, no. Barrels, you can still lose air and
the angel share.
and
all
and
that.
some evaporation. If
Yeah.
you're in a sealed metal container, you're not going to have that same effect.
You're not.
Right.
No.
No. I got to believe you'll have some because even bottles over time will evaporate. But that being said, you're going to lose much less.
Yes.
So, like I said, goes back to the sustainability question, right? Like technically, you're going to get a little bit more all the time. You're going to get more of this. You're going to get more of that. But is the quality going to be similar? Is it not going to be similar? I know the legend has been a hard like, hey, screw y'all hippies, y'all new young Fandango fools. Give me my bourbon old school. And I understand that. And like I said, the traditionalist in me, I feel the same way. But when I sit back and I think, dude, how do we keep enough oak trees to where, 50 years from now, people are going to be able to enjoy bourbon? Or do I just say, STBY sucks to be you. We had the good shit and you didn't.
Well, here's the thing.
I think we're already experiencing it to a certain extent.
No, we're not.
No.
If you came up to my work right now, we are a forest in decline. We have oaks that me and Scott and Nick over here could not hug around. They're up there. They're 200 plus years old.
And they need to be cut down.
They
Right,
need
right.
to. They're
No,
aging out.
I understand
But
that.
there is still a ton of oak out there that people just don't cut.
Right.
Right. I guess what I'm getting to is the difference of barrel staves from, say, 40, 50 years ago versus in the past 15, 20 years.
Okay. Then
because you can actually go and look at some of those staves and look at how many rings are on those staves.
you're also talking about at 50, 60 years ago, even 30 years ago, we'll go just that distance back. You're talking a naturally grown tree versus what we now mostly grow is some form of a natural. To me, they've been played with. The genetics have been played with on certain things to make them grow quicker.
Oh, no, I'm not going to
Look at pines and all that. You look at just a 2x4, then you can see the difference
Yeah.
of the time frame. But
Except they're like 1.5 by 3.5 anymore.
yeah, and they shrink down even further when they dry. That's a whole nother point. But
That's what she said.
but I know people that are trying to log places right now that are hillsides just because of how much white oak is bringing. And around here, they are so selective. It's not every white oak tree that is ever going to be made into a stave. If it's straight, it's good. If it's got a limb 4 feet up, that oak tree is useless pretty much.
I get that's not what I'm
The
necessarily
only
getting
thing,
at.
if we do the chips, you could use more of the trees.
That is true.
I will say that.
I'm not going to deny that. That's producing a lot less wastefulness.
Yeah.
From the side effects of a tree. What I'm kind of getting at is what we would consider old dusties, and do the tightness of the rings from the truly aged trees that were very old produce a different flavor than ones with less rings.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
You go back to the 70s, 80, 86 proof Jim Beam things. Oh my God. It's just amazing flavor.
The difference between Beam
Incredible.
then and now is
But is that the trees being older and better quality,
Oh, I
or is
believe
that partially it's aged longer to begin with?
That's
and
those
then
rings.
Well, no, not. But I'm not even sure the wood is aged any differently.
No.
I think it's more the bourbon was 6 years old versus what we're getting today at 4.5 and 5.
I would disagree with you. I think the fact that the trees themselves were older, more mature, just brought so much more. I mean, the trees make the difference in bourbon.
I don't disagree.
Yeah,
I'm not.
And the fact that they're today they're cutting trees as quickly as they have to
Right.
in order to keep up with the barrel production. The back in the day in the 70s, 80s, there was not the pressure to make barrels.
But you also have a different style corn that we have currently.
Well,
Some of the ingredients have changed
Yeah.
to a degree.
I think you can make many arguments about
Yeah.
why old Dusties, the stuff from the 80s and 90s and earlier, tastes better than today's juice.
Heck, 2010 prior tastes completely different.
I think that
All the trees.
I think the wood has
I think
something
the-
to do
Oh,
with
yeah.
it.
I'm not going to argue with you on that.
I think even water. Like, think about how much shit we put in our water now.
Well, I mean, the thing is if if you talk
Have
back,
you ever seen what they put in the old, like what they used to dump in streams and all that back then? Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is
So-
that they had everything that people hear that's from outside of here, being Kentucky, Indiana area, it's always that limestone. It's that glorious limestone aquifer that cleanses the water and it makes it that unique taste. And I will put money down that there is probably not a current distillery anymore that is directly taking it from those aquifers. But before,
Oh, they're taking it from an aquifer, but they're also reverse osmosing it and putting
Stripping.
stripping almost all the value out of that water. Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm getting at. It's, because I will say probably, 30, 40 years ago plus, they were pulling it right off that limestone as a mineralized water and cleansed from that way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So that's what I said. I think there's a lot of different things. So back to wood.
So,
What should we do? What does that look like? Like, do you think that there's some way we can meet in the middle? Like, is there a way that, like, we can say, hey, we'll call bourbon this, and it has to be the old traditional way. But then you allow people to age whiskey in vats with whatever and taste it and see what it tastes like in 5 or 10 years?
All right. Let me throw the traditionalist a quick question. Does it matter if it's white oak? Because there's many different flavors of white oak.
Oh, 100% it matters that it's white oak. And the main reason why, I think, for one, you couldn't make a barrel out of red oak. It would just literally soak through.
I think there's
too porous.
I think there's some other versions of oak that are out there that have been either used or tried.
you'd have to go up to Europe.
incredible.
Their style wood.
But almost all those white oak varieties are still white oak. They're
Yeah.
regardless if it's French or if it's
Colombian
or American or Canadian, they're all white oaks. Like it's, I think white oak is white oak. Unfortunately, there's still distinguishable characteristics that come with regions in which they grow, like you said,
Gotcha.
the rings and things
Yeah.
like that. But I think white oak is fairly white oak. I mean, from the standpoint of we don't say because you brought French oak and you put bourbon in a brand new French oak barrel that it's not bourbon. It has to be white oak.
Okay.
So that'd be what, new American white oak?
No, it has to be new white oak.
Oh, it doesn't. Okay.
It doesn't have to be American white oak.
Okay, my bad.
It's like the MGP, like the ones we tried out of Means. That I mean, like we throw fits over those Colombian oaks are
Yeah,
fantastic.
Oh, they're wonderful.
You know,
they're leaky, but they're
yeah, they're a little leaky, but they're fantastic. You know, much lower proof, but they're
some of
just
the
a different
Hungarian stuff
characteristic.
that we've had.
Yeah, the Hungarian oaks. Yeah, I mean Tokais. I mean, there's lots of different like oaks that are throughout the world that people use to done things, and America is not discounting the value that those white oaks bring.
My thing is, if we were going to run out of oak, we would have did it by now and long before this, because white oak was mainly used for ship making. Now it's not. And if you look at Europe, they clear cut most of Europe at different points in history. So, and if you can be sustainable and be nice to the wood or to the earth, or you can make it sustainable and not trying to clear cut every 4 or 5 years, you could do a lot better.
All right, Nick, you
got
Googled
a
something
smile
over there.
on.
He's got a smug look, like he's going to tell us we're all wrong about something.
Well,
My wife tells me that all the time.
Hungarian oak is not white oak.
Oh, it's not white oak.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
It's not. That's why I said I'm still kind of searching for a few of the other ones.
Well, you got
but
black oak, you got red oak, which red oak is beautiful but useless unless you're making furniture, and only certain furnitures.
or flooring,
Or
Yeah, or
flooring,
flooring.
yeah.
cabinets.
Because we had a beautiful piece up at work that was probably 30 feet long and almost 3 feet in diameter. They were only willing to give 40 cents a square foot on it, board foot, where a white oak gets $1.80 or something like that.
Right. Somebody's breathing hard. Who's breathing hard? Is it- Somebody.
I'm this way.
That's me. I'm sorry.
That's all good. I just was like noticing somebody was breathing hard there for a minute.
I'm not breathing.
No.
I hope you aren't. They could be over there doing CPR to the legend.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
But I mean,
All right.
I'm waiting for CPR from Barbara.
There you go. She is the nurse.
yeah. Don't trust us.
But French oak is white oak.
Yeah, French oak is white.
It is considered white. I'm just checking on
All right.
Colombian
so
right now.
maybe the Hungarians are all finished, but like Colombian, I know like was not a problem because like MGP did it, and I know some other distilleries that did it, the Colombian, but I don't know. I consistently go back to the fact of, is there a way to make bourbon more sustainable and maybe help with the price points of it to make it more affordable for certain people? Of course, I say that, and then I still look, and Oak Calvert or whatever, still $9.99 for a $7.50 Kentucky Tavern, right? Yeah.
Oak Crow. You got your options.
JTS Brown.
Yeah. I mean, there's still some super good things that are out there that are
You got
really,
some
really
that
affordable.
you shouldn't touch.
Yeah. The
Others that
Kentucky
should.
Tavern. Oak Calvert, and there's a bunch of those that are just not good. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's my biggest thing is where does it sit from a sustainability point, and at what point do you say sustainability is worth XYZ to the industry, and will the government get involved to
Step in.
to say, hey, we've got to do something here, or we don't have to do here. And listen, I'm like you, Carl. I've also heard that there's more than enough. Like I said, when I talked to Zach and we did the interview with him, he's like, literally, we are not clearing out portions of our forest enough like we should, because there's a lot of other trees that are basically useless trees for anything, whether it be
Ash.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's for
Unless you're
furniture
basketball
or anything,
or
right?
baseball.
I mean, there's lots of things that you just don't use a lot of woods for as a general rule. And because we don't clear those out and leave room for like white oak and different things, red oak, whatever it is, cedar, we hurt ourselves in some capacity.
Fire is good. That's all I got to say.
That I worked for a company that depended on white oak, and there was never a question about availability. The question was, were we willing to pay the price that barrel makers were willing to pay?
The cooperages.
Yeah.
And there was, we went out of business because barrel makers, cooperages, would pay whatever they needed to pay.
Right.
We could not do that.
Is there anything else that's predominantly made with white oak other than whiskey? Like, I mean,
furniture.
Okay, so take out the obvious things like furniture, things like that.
Flooring.
Yeah, but to me that's still sort of obvious, like oak. No, I'm not discounting what you're saying. I'm just
Besides,
saying,
like,
but what's
housing-
paper made out of?
That
Pine.
is scraps.
Is that made out of
Scraps.
pine scraps and things like that,
Yeah,
or
I think
whatever?
it's about anything.
Just about anything. Okay.
If it can make a watery pulp.
Right.
If you go to northern Florida and drive some of the back roads, all you will see is trucks carrying mega loads of pine trees, taking them to a paper mill.
Or
It's
cypress or...
Right. I couldn't remember. Like I didn't know what paper was
Pine
made
is
from.
the most common use of...
Yeah.
Right. So it sounds like oak is used for pretty much like your normal everyday things that people really rely on for quality things.
I mean,
whether it be
it's considered
bourbon,
hardwood.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, anything that's
What
typically
she
hard-
said.
I was waiting for that one.
There's certain things that...
Once a month.
All right. To me, white oak isn't... On some furniture is like lower grade for
Right.
some of the fancier
Yeah,
furniture
no,
stuff.
100%. Yeah, you get mahogany and cherry and Brazilian cherry, and yeah, I know, I get
The
it.
redwoods from out
Yeah.
in California.
Walnut.
Yeah.
Well, I love black walnut wood. There's just something about black walnut wood. I love it. Love it.
I mean,
That's what she said.
I can't think of another thing that white oak is used for anymore, because at one time it was shipbuilding, it was cars, it was carriages. Really,
I mean, I guess the question is that
you're not using it to build houses anymore.
beyond the rules, and the rules are probably there in place for a reason, for, saying it's white oak, the question that, has probably happened in the past, it'll probably happen more recent as well, but I just don't know of any documented. But has anybody experimented with walnut, cherry, or any of the other woods.
I'm sure somebody out there has, but they may have not wanted their results to come to light because it may have not worked out real well for them.
And that very well could be.
Because some of them, even though they're considered hardwood, to me they probably leak real well.
Yeah, I would
don't
agree
char
with
well.
part of that. They probably don't char well.
It's been 60 years since the federal government created the native spirits with white oak,
Right.
with bourbon,
Yeah.
What I meant to
Was it 1964?
1964.
Yeah.
So, there's not been the impetus to experiment because the expectation is that you're using white oak.
Yeah,
Right. No, I get it. Like I
unless
said,
otherwise stated.
Well, I mean, was it whenever we visited Mean about whenever talking about the Colombian oak? It was whenever they were during that white oak American white oak shortage, and they were trying, and MGP and a few other places were trying to source other white oak from Colombia and French oak. I think that was probably
the
whenever
supply
French-
got bought up. It was a shortage only because China came in and bought massive quantities, probably to build stuff, whether it be
Yeah.
furniture or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. All the furniture manufacturers moved from Virginia and North Carolina to
China.
Well, even New Albany. I mean, New Albany used to be one of the major leaders of veneer.
right.
Right.
There's only one company left out of like 20.
2 or 3. But
Is
yeah,
there? I mean,
yeah.
there's not many.
They're 2 of the 3 are super specialized. Like they literally only make veneers for like airplanes and
Yeah.
shit like that. I mean, they're high dollar.
I've
veneer
seen some of those
companies.
airplanes.
Yeah.
There's E.M.
gorgeous.
Cummings and
Mitchell Veneer, and then
Mitchell,
what's the
yeah.
other big veneer? Custom Plywood
Yeah.
is the
Yeah,
other
I mean-
big one. They're both in the industrial park there in downtown
Right.
in New Albany, out off of Hosfeld. But
Stemwood used to be a player.
yeah, Stemwood,
Yeah.
and they still do some veneer stuff. Stemwood does. There's also another.
Stemwood closed in 2015.
Did they close in 2015?
That's because
I forgot about that.
lost my job then.
Okay, Godly, I forgot. I forgot they closed then.
He knows very personally.
Yeah,
There's now an apartment complex on that property.
yeah. There's
Where isn't there an apartment complex at this point?
fair enough. So I just think it's a conversation worth having. You know, you and your friends should go out and have this conversation. Somebody play devil's advocate. You know, I mean, I think there's definitely some logic one way or the other of like, how do you do it? Is there really a sustainability issue? Is there not? You know, what's that look like? Why aren't people trying cherry wood? Why aren't people trying mahogany? You know, are those, and maybe they are trying it and maybe they're not selling it because it can't be called bourbon. You know, I mean, who knows? Who knows what the reasons are? But I think that this is a conversation that more people need to have in order to make sure as an industry that we've got something for our future generations to enjoy.
My one question about the whole would be stainless steel. Is it going to affect the taste? Because like some people, if they drink a Coke or whatever have you in a metal container, can actually pick out the iron, or it tastes irony to them. Is that going to,
Who knows?
putting it in a stainless steel
Who knows?
container,
Maybe,
that?
Maybe you put them in giant glass carboys.
That'd be a hell of a container.
I mean, think about how heavy it would be and hard to work with. But
Or
like,
the plastic thing.
yeah, or plastic
Yeah.
totes. I mean, there's 100 different ways
Oh,
you
yeah.
can store it or do
Yeah.
it. I just chose stainless steel because that was the one thing that somebody said that
Well, I think most people dump it
stainless
into
would
it.
take the heat
Yeah.
and the cold better than anything else would
That's true.
from
Yeah.
transferring.
Especially like the high heat and
Yeah, plastic, I think.
I don't
over
think I want
time-
plastic in-
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think you would worry more about leaching of BPA or any other weird things that could come from plastic that I think you would want to stay well clear of that.
I don't think
That
you'll
nonsense.
you'll never get the quality though from something other than wood, because you can't go in and out of stainless steel. You can't go in and out of plastic.
But if the wood's inside of it, if it's going in and out of the wood
There's-
from the heat on the inside,
I don't think it's.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just curious. Is that
don't-
true though?
I don't think it's the same if you just dump wood in the thing, because the outside matters of the container.
But why?
Because you're going to get the heat is going to
The heat's going to come through the metal.
but it's not going to be the
What
same.
do you cook with?
It's not going to be the same. It's going to be dispersed within the container.
Now, I could maybe agree with somewhat in the disperse, but in some situations, somebody would say dispersion's a better situation.
Well, I would argue differently until somebody proves me
otherwise. No, and like I said, I'm not disagreeing with you.
I-
I'm just playing devil's advocate in some
know.
capacity.
Because I think you're going to have to line the edges with the wood just to get all the heat
All right.
to the
The
wood.
heat-
I'm gonna play devil's advocate on something here, with as a topic of conversation. If we get to the point to where we have a supply issue of white oak, I'm not gonna say that there is, not say there won't be, but would the thought of easing it to where you could reuse those barrels come into play if there was such a supply issue?
I would be fine with that.
I think what will happen at that point is you will see what they call reseasoning of barrels.
Like reburning them, recharring them, like stripping and rechar.
Strip, rechar.
Doesn't somebody do that now?
Yeah, but it's not. Those are people that are usually using those in those situations for double oaking.
Okay.
It's not a brand new.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that would not be. It would not be bourbon.
Right, correct.
No, I'm just saying there.
Yeah.
I thought there was somebody that was already
Yeah,
doing
they're
that process.
definitely doing
to
that
some
process
form.
right now. Zach, all the Cooperages, ISC, all of them are doing strips now and doing different things.
I mean-
Now a lot of them are even doing what Stephen was talking about, right? Like so people could double oak. They're doing those notches to give more surface area to the barrel in order to enhance or more rapidly age the distillate at that
Yes.
point.
I'm going to bring up his favorite topic. Scotch isn't, or Irish whiskey is all used
Yeah,
barrels too.
they're all used barrels. Yeah, 100%.
So
But
I mean,
those are made for used barrels for a reason.
Yeah,
They-
but I say people thought like JD, Jack Daniels was sorry about that, was whiskey because they kept reusing the same barrels.
right.
But
That's really not.
to the contrary, that once you really dig deep into them, they're actually new charred oak barrels, so they're
Yeah.
meeting the bourbon requirements.
they just call themselves whiskey.
All right, before we jump off here, because I
Well-
think we've drugged this through the mud just about. The second barrel, 12-year-old.
I have one more thought.
All right,
I'm not sure that any of this really matters because I'm afraid that there's going to be a decline in bourbon in terms of consumer
Well, you're already starting to see
Oh.
that to a
And-
degree,
and
or at least
Another
certain
thing, are we
products.
about to
As-
open up another can of worms here?
I know,
this
but-
is another
but as-
episode, but
But as current users age, I'm not sure that they're being replaced.
Oh no, I don't believe that's the case whatsoever. I still think there's a young fascination with different people. So there's always newer people coming into it, but the question is that how much money are they wanting to invest
Exactly.
into some of the prices of bourbon to where they're just buying some of the more cheaper versions.
that's my fear more than will there be enough bourbon drinkers. I think what will happen is you will see a definite change in the market of what's available and what's not available based on people's pocketbooks.
And that's where I was headed with my comment.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because there's not going to be the demand for the high quality stuff that people enjoy now. I don't think. Because there's going to be so much more bourbon being produced, it's going to water down the market.
That may be true. We may be able to at this point because of the fact that, hell, Sazerac added another 36 column still. Jackson Purchase just added a 36 column
Well,
still.
how many-
Bardstown's added another 36. Like they're all adding multiple, lines.
Woodford doubled
Woodford's,
theirs.
yeah, right, yeah. So everybody's doubled or tripled their capacity over
and
the
the
last
rick
10 years.
houses are
Flying up as fast as
Yeah.
you can, right? I will agree to that to some point. I think it still will boil down to more of a pocketbook. I think there will still be a want and a need for it, but there are going to be fewer and fewer people that will be able to afford certain levels of bourbon. Like, even though I make good money, I'm still not going to buy a Woodford Baccarat bottle. Even if it was fantastically delicious, I don't have $14,000 to spend on bourbon.
or a Woodford 150.
I've tasted it. Trust me, it's just Woodford in a fancy bottle.
Right, and that's fine. My point is that like there's still going to be limits to everybody's spending habits and things like that. Like there's some of the dudes that are in some of these groups that we're in and clubs that we're in, like the amount of money they spend versus what I spend even, and I feel like I spend a fair amount of money on bourbon is astronomically different. Hell, look at me and Carl. I mean, we sit here every day or every week and drink bourbon together.
Yeah.
What I spend on bourbon, what Carl spends on bourbon are totally
Way
different
different.
atmospheres. But
then you get some of those guys that spend 20 grand and don't blink.
right. So I think that's where it boils down to. But what happened in 1950 to 1970 where people just were like, I'm not drinking bourbon because that's what my dad and my grandpa drank.
I don't think we're going to get
I don't
that.
think we're going to have that same rejection of the spirit itself.
or the assumption of dark spirits are bad.
The only
Right,
thing I'm wondering about is because I'm one of the younger people here. Well, actually, I am the youngest person here today. What's the attention span of my generation and the generations following mine towards stuff? Because I've seen guys hip hop all around everything and go from one to another. And I've known a lot of people that got me into bourbon. They don't really drink it no more. They've got out of it.
That's what, and that's kind of where I was going. I don't think there's going to be the demand for bourbon, and i.e., the demand for barrels going forward. So I'm not concerned about
The
the
sustainability.
sustainability issue.
That makes sense. I mean, it really does. The more you talk about it,
I think there's going to be a lag because the thing is that they're producing so much right now.
Oh, yeah.
Because based off of estimations from the past, say, 5 years.
Well, it's from 2015 to now.
I mean, I'm going to die one day, and you people aren't going to take up my slack.
Because we're already producing our own.
Have you seen the number of bottles Barbara and I have killed recently? That should
You're
just
on
tells
another
you.
level. Like me and Scott have open bottles, then it's you all.
yeah.
There's a difference.
I think what you also will see, though, that will change part of that demand legend is we're seeing an increased amount of people that want aged tequila, aged rum.
The craft spirits.
Well, it's not even as much
No, not even
craft.
craft, yeah.
They want barrel aged products. They've seen the light in what bourbon does in an aged barrel.
Right.
Now they're wanting to do rum.
I'm
They're
not-
wanting to do
the tequila, like the tequila, like
Right.
the number of
Oh,
probably
aged tequila is
the
wonderful.
Inhale,
Right.
the anything that's over 1 year of aged tequila.
Right.
I mean, people are in search of it. I mean, like I have a few bottles myself of like extra aged.
Right.
I mean, it's good.
So would not surprise me if we see it at some point.
A divergent of a small group or something.
No, I think you'll see an explosion of
Okay.
instead of it going in a used barrel, that there's going to be a group of people that are going to be like, we're just going to throw all of our shit in a brand new charred oak, all our tequila, and we're going to age it for 3 years or 4 years, and we're going to put an age stated quality statement on it like bourbon and hold it to a different standard. Which I think will also
be cool.
kind of shift
Yeah.
markets
Oh,
as
yeah.
well.
I think some spirits have always been with the secondary, like rum is usually a secondary
Right.
barrel.
Cast finish, yeah.
Yeah. I think those will probably not as much go to a single barrel, like the brand new charred oak barrel or
Yeah.
what have you, just because their flavor profile is sort of tied into a secondary barrel to a degree.
I will throw out there if anybody out that's listening has ever had Zappapas 23.
Right.
That is, I usually give that to rum drinkers as kind of that gateway between rum and bourbon
Right.
because it is aged at high altitude now it's used white oak, but it's still white oak barrels.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's where you'll see things kind of change as far as like what the market looks like for those type of barrels. That being said, I don't know. You all might be right.
We'll see
Zach
in the next
might be
5 to
right.
10 years.
Right. Yeah. We don't know. But all I know is I'm still going to enjoy it while I have it. And I hope we don't have issues with it in the future, I guess would be the best way of putting it.
I think certain things are going to start coming back on the market a lot more.
Yep. Fair enough.
And I think that's another topic for another episode.
Yes,
All
it
right.
is.
Amen.
Well, that's our episode of Burn Barrel Talk. If you want to find us on Facebook, the Instagram, or the X, right? Is that it?
Big X.
The Big X. The Big X. That's my favorite radio store or radio station locally. Anyway, if you want to send us a message, send it to bourbonbarreltalk@gmail.com. This is Scott, the Legend, Nick, and Carl signing off. Peace.
See you.
Cheers.
Prost.